Welcome back to Building a House in Minecraft for 30 days. Today we're on day 14 and I am just figuring out the layout right now of this build. I took heavy inspiration from this reference that I will show on screen right now. The main inspiration I used was the roof, the color palette, and the way I designed the windows. So it's very heavily inspired. And right now I'm just working on figuring out the actual layout and how I want to do the build. And I'm starting out with the cobblestone as the bottom there, because in the actual reference it uses a bunch of different kind of like cobble bricks. And I'm gonna be using cobblestone and I believe tough in there, and I'm also trying to get the windows looking right. I use iron bars and black concrete to get that desired effect of the windows, and then I'm just messing around trying to get that 3D effect where it's stretched out for the doors. And then it's really hard to make a circular like window, but that is what I'm trying to do right now. And then I'm going to work on the walls, add some more windows, and actually what I did work on in this build is I also really tried to add in the shadows of the build. So the shadows that I saw in the actual photo reference, I wanted to try to add those shadows in game with different kinds of blocks going from lights to darks in a visualization of where the sun most likely is in this photo concept art of this house. So I use tough, polished tough, and stone, cobblestone, some deep slate to get that desired effect. And I forget what that stone is, but like it's like that's almost like polished stone, smooth stone. That's what it's called, smooth stone, to get that desired really light effect. And then as you can see in the reference, there are leaves in lots of different places. You can't really see the back of the build, so you have to use inspiration. And I was also using my thought process that it's going to most likely be the darkest in the back, because there's not going to be any light really coming towards the back of the build, at least where the light is showing in this photo. So I'm continuing to work on the walls, just trying to mess around with different kinds of blocks, of figuring out what blocks would work good for the different shadowing and lighting, which I use tough cobblestone, deep slate, cobbled deep slate, and polished tough. I always want to call like that type of block when it looks in that type of design. I don't know what you want to call it, but I always want to call that a polished version of whatever block it is, like polished andesite or polished tough, and I think it is called polished tough. Then I also try blackstone, because blackstone is actually, I believe, other than maybe black concrete, one of the darkest blocks we have in game. Adding some vines to further show that it's overgrowing off the build. Adding in this 3D part of the side of the wall. And just trying to make sure I'm adding in that in. Then we go up to the next part of the wall using mushroom stems for the white part of the build, making sure to build it up for the roof. And yeah, so that's what I'm working on at the moment, is working on the mushroom stems and then going through with the block that I'm using for the roof, which is jungle plank stairs. I used also sandstone stairs and acacia stairs to make this roof. because I really wanted to use a different kind of style of roof, and in the reference it was an orangey-ish texture or color, and I think it actually did really turn out really good. I've never actually made an orange roof with this type of gradient, but definitely worth doing again at some point. You could also maybe use, I wish we had like a concrete version or terracotta version of slabs and stairs, but we don't. Adding in the leaves all around to give that overgrowth look, and then there are, I don't want to call them accents, but the pillars or the supports of the walls for this top part of the building are darker, and you're trying to show that in the build, and it's hard to show that off, so usually you have to use a darker wood block or stairs or walls or something along those. So I'm using fences or fence posts, and also oak logs and stripped spruce logs to try to show that. And I'm really, for this build, copying the reference, or getting very, very heavily inspired to the reference, almost copying it. Not copying it, but trying to block for block reference it with my own little style in there. Like, the windows are not going to be exact, and not everything is going to 100% be accurate, but experimenting with that, but make it as close as possible to the actual photo reference, which can be really hard, but I feel like that is how I can improve and figure out what blocks look good together in future builds and future houses, and know, okay, these blocks I used in the past, I used this block palette before, and these actually look good. I've made these different medieval houses, like I've been making a few different medieval houses in these past few days of builds, and I know what is starting to look good, or what are themes that are in a lot of these different medieval type houses. So again, I'm making these not struts, but just wall supports, and working on this back part of the window, and just trying to make it look right, so it has kind of a circular type window, because in the actual reference it is, well, you can't see the back, but in the front it makes it seem like it would have a circular window in the back, or at least it felt like it would. So that's why I'm adding one for the design. And I messed around with doing dark oak logs, and I was like, that's too dark, especially with using the dark oak fences. So I changed it over to spruce stripped logs and oak logs to break up the log texture. And then I use dark oak fences to further make those accents of the wall supports. And I'm just going around trying to make sure it looks good, using those fence gates as separation and not making it look so uniform, because for me at least, I don't want it to look all the same. I want it to have difference to it, and not just be all one block. Like, you could just add the wall supports and show the wall accents with just the dark stripped logs, but adding in these other details gives it more depth from just the wall, so it's not just flat, and it's more 3D, or it's more closer to how it may feel in real life. And then I'm adding barrels around because in the reference it had lots of different barrels, so I'm adding in those barrels as exterior decoration, adding in a window on the bottom part of this house, and just messing around with different designs of a window to see what might look good. And then just wondering with the different designs, messing around with them, trying to figure out something I like, with also making sure the shadowing of the wall looks correct, and adding in a window on this other side of the wall. Originally I was gonna add the redstone lamps, but the redstone lamps didn't look very good, so I instead added the iron bars once again with the black. At least I think I did. Maybe I kept the redstone lamps in there to give it some light and the idea of someone's home. And that's pretty much the main part of this build. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace out. Bye.